except that the EEC ruled just recently, devastatingly in one case, that if you don't have a specific standard for your product, you must satisfy the nearest one. And suddenly the lorry manufacturers discovered they'd got to satisfy 26262. And so did the motorcycles. Now, the motorcycles had an argument of their own. They did point out that why are we worrying about the safety aspects of the software on a motorbike, which is intrinsically dangerous? So that's a point. It's a point. So, but I think they're still going to have to conform. And medical devices, railway, and they have variations on these standards. The most famous standard of all is the D0178B, D0178C standards for avionics. These have been going since 1992, and it is stunning how reliable avionics software is. The number of problems with aircraft we've had since that standard came out is minute compared with the number flying and the hours they fly. You cannot put an aircraft in the skies of most countries unless they satisfy that standard. Even military planes in some places must satisfy that standard, even though it's a civil standard. In software, we also have special standards for things like security. CERT, this comes from money put forward by the Department of Homeland Security in the United States. This is the US government saying enough is enough. Since the problem is in software, put in place standards which prevent this stuff happening. And CERT is an attempt to do it. The government also maintains statistics, the CWE, which is the Common Weakness Enumerations, a meaningless term, but they're trying to list the bugs. Then here we have an unusual one. This is part of the C programming language. The government said to the designers of the C language, it's your language which causes most of the trouble, fix it. So they've produced a standard. You must satisfy these rules now to be able to sell software in the United States. And it goes on. In Britain, the British government has just completed an activity. We now have a provisional British standard for software. It's only going to start taking a few legal cases now for that to become mandatory to sell anything in Britain. So, where does that leave India? Well, India doesn't have any standards for software. There's no such thing, I understand, as an Indian software standard. Maybe you need one. Maybe you need to think about how you react to the rest of the world if you're trying to sell products abroad. It's not enough to say, think about making them for the rest of the world. You've got to make them so that you can sell them there. And if the countries demand that a standard be satisfied, then you have to do that. So there's a huge implication there. Now, the snag as we see it as a company is manifold. We've heard academics blamed for the lack of skills that industry needs. As an ex-academic, I'm not happy with that. When you're an academic, you're burdened down with administration, worrying about students, trying to prepare your lectures, trying to do some research, and then you find that what you're teaching the students isn't what industry wants. Industry has got to come to you and tell you what they want. And it's even better if they come to you with material which will help you prepare the courses. So it's not enough to blame the universities. You need to help them. Similarly, with industry, there's very little awareness in India about the international standards in software. I know that because we're involved with the industry there. So there's a whole need for awareness and education in these fields. Maybe Indians should go and sit on these committees that design these standards and perhaps bring a slight Indian perspective to these things. As I go around the world, I sit on a lot of these committees, and you know what? It's very often the same people all the blooming time. Need fresh blood, a wider scope of people. Regulatory bodies need teeth. In other words, it must be impossible for you to sell your product unless it satisfies standards which meet public expectations. The consumer must be considered in this. So, it's time to act. Well, LDRA is not a very big company, so we can't educate. Is it 1.3 billion, did I hear earlier this morning? Someone said about 1.3 billion, so there's doubt. Difficulty in counting. Nobody stands still long enough. So if we do things together, can make some progress in this area. And our company is setting out some initiatives. We've started putting on some large conferences where we bring experts from around the world. It'd be nice to bring in Indian experts as well. Well, we do some of that, but mainly at the moment it's the expertise is outside of India. Bring them in, get them talking to people so that there's awareness. Why do you need these standards? Why is it important? We're doing an academic alliance program. You can see where that's coming from. I'm obviously a bit sympathetic to the poor professors in universities. Underpaid, undervalued, you know the story. And we're also now constructing an LDRA competency center. What we're doing is it's a front end. We don't know everything. But what we can do is bring together a gang who collectively can produce a lot of skills and knowledge. We're propagating information on safety and security practices. Why do you need to do these things? What do you get? What's the benefit in these things? Similarly, we're about to put in place a knowledge portal. Again, it's not just us, it's a whole gang, because we just don't know. Much as we'd like to know everything, we have to acknowledge we don't. So it's, again, a collection of companies and people who represent a place where you can go to if you need some information. And a certification monitoring program. Sorry, mentoring program. Monitoring would be good. But trying to help people get through this certification program. Our company actually does this with avionics. If you have an avionics project, we can take you right through the certification program, right from constructing the requirements right through to the delivery of the code. We do that as one of our commercial activities. But that sort of technology is very expensive for some companies. There are lesser ways of achieving that. And what we want to do is put together some sort of organization where you can go there and get some help. So not have someone come in with heavy boots and trample all over you and change the way you do things necessarily, but just show you how in possibly small ways you can improve and achieve these goals. Because not all these standards are necessarily hard to achieve. Some of them are tough, really tough, as they ought to be if you can kill somebody. But generally speaking, achieving these standards is no big deal. So, I managed to only overflow my time by 10 minutes. So at that point, Thank you very much.